election in the 102nd. It includes 7 counties, and in Columbia County we have Stuyvesant and Stockport, to which we now claim as our quality over quantity towns in the district. So in a district that Donald Trump won just 2 years ago by 23 points, in a district that we were told could never be won by a Democrat, we came less than 1 point away from achieving victory. And that is only because of the people in the room, and a lot of you, friends, donors, volunteers in the room, I have to wholeheartedly thank you. And I'm here to tell you today that we handed our signatures in and we will be on the ballot on November 6th. For those who don't know the background, I'm a paramedic by trade. I'm a flight paramedic. I've actually flown in every single one of the counties, including here in Chatham, a lot to Columbia Memorial Hospital, and work at Greenport Rescue Squad. And our vision remains the same as it did before. I want to help as many people and help our communities, and that is how we're going to achieve it. We have a new campaign manager with us, Carolyn Riggs from the Brian Flynn campaign. Our friend to a lot of us here. And we just ask for as many volunteer support as possible, and I'm here to tell you that November 6th, with the team that you're going to hear from today, before I was very lonely running the special election by myself, we now have a tremendous team, and I look forward to working with them and all of you. Thank you all very much.
So in the 107, there's a primary in September, and 107 is Chatham and points north. And I'd like to call up, where is?
Points south too, Don.
Don, come on up.
Thank you. Very simple question. Round of applause. Who's ready to turn upstate New York back blue this year? These were all blue seats in a former year. They were. You know, I think about my family. My family came to Troy during the Armenian genocide. Like a lot of immigrant families right in upstate New York, came here with just the shirts on our back, fleeing near certain death. But we found the American dream right here in upstate New York. And we don't take that for granted. And I always took a lot of peace of mind in knowing that this was a country that embraced immigrant families like mine. Could a family like mine even come to this country in 2018? It breaks my heart. And I'm an environmental attorney. I represent folks in Hoosick Falls suffering with PFOA contamination and folks along the Hudson River with the PCBs. And I always took peace of mind in knowing that our Federal Environmental Protection Agency was committed to righting the environmental wrongs of the past. That's what it meant to me. But I don't sleep so soundly in the past couple of years knowing that the EPA has let the fox into the hen house. And they're destroying the environment. They're the Environmental Destruction Agency. You know, I also used to take a lot of comfort in knowing that for nearly half a century, our Supreme Court had upheld a woman's autonomy over her body and her reproductive rights.
Yep.
But I've been sitting up awake a lot at night when I see what the Supreme Court new appointment is looking like. But amidst all of this chaos that we see every day, I take a lot of comfort in one thing. We live in New York State. When they appoint Kavanaugh, we have people like Dee Dee Barrett and the governor go down and say, Senate, get back to work, we are codifying Roe v. Wade. That's what New York State is about. That's what Capital Region is going to be about. Because I tell you what, I have a big chip on my shoulder. The eastern side of the Capital Region for too long has not had a Democrat in these seats. We don't get a voice. We need a voice. Hoosick Falls needs a voice. To me, that is the symbol of what's happened to our whole region. It's been neglected. Well, guess what? A Democrat's going to get it done. We learned in 2016 a very real lesson. Elections have consequences. Let's show them that lesson again in 2018 and get Democrats elected in upstate New York. Thank you.
And now we have our local new Lebanon, Tistria.
Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Tistria Hoatleen. I was born and raised in New Lebanon, New York, where I'm now raising my 3 young children, serving as the elected town clerk in the town of New Lebanon. I've seen firsthand in the local government how our state is not bringing the funding our way because we sit in the minority. So we have a road in New Lebanon, Route 22, that runs through Canaan and Austerlitz and other towns. You can't drive that road. I go around, even though it takes longer. And so as the town, we contacted DOT and we said, we need this road fixed. And they said, you're not Westchester County. You're not going to get that kind of funding. It's too bad and we need to rip up the whole road. And so I'm running for state assembly because I feel that our small rural towns, which is the majority of District 107, need representation for somebody from these small rural towns that know the needs of the constituents here.
Yes.
Thank you. We have an opioid crisis. It is a crisis. And everyone in this room probably knows of somebody that's been affected by this crisis. And I was the court clerk in the town of New Lebanon for 6 years, and I saw firsthand that what we're doing is not working. We have to do better, and we can do better. We need to make sure that we're providing treatment for people that are ready for help. We had people come in addicted to heroin that said, I need help. That's the only time you're going to be successful at helping those people, is when they say, I need help. And we told them, there's no bed for you. And 2 weeks later, we called them and said, there's a bed. They didn't need help anymore. We missed the window of opportunity. We have to do better here in Columbia County and Rensselaer County fighting the opioid crisis.
Yeah.
Thank you. So in addition to wanting to bring the values of our communities to the state assembly, to sit next to assemblywomen like Dee Dee Barrett, who fight for their community, who are a voice for their community, who truly represent the people of their community, I'm also running because I have 3 young children, and I cannot turn the news on today with my children in the room because it is like a scary movie. So I was in tears the other day watching children ripped away from their mothers in our country with the Statue of Liberty that says, bring us your huddled masses, your poor, who was founded, thank you, with the Statue of Liberty that represents our country. Our country that was founded on immigration. And not only are we not making room in our country right now, we are ripping apart families. And when I told my daughter a little bit of what was happening, she ran and got the phone and she said, Mom, call 911. This is an emergency. You always taught me that in an emergency you call 911 and they come and help. Well, right now in this country, we can't call 911. But as your assemblywoman, you will be able to pick up the phone and call me. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry I'm a little bit late. I'm Sharon Alley. I lived here in town for about 5 years and heard that you all were meeting to get out the vote. And I thought I would just be walking up and down on the sidewalk trying to attract attention. I've been helping out in Albany County. I live now very near the Albany County Jail, and we have a sheriff who is taking the lead. He is trying to offer an actual sanctuary for the people who are in ICE detention. Sheriff Craig Apple has given He got everyone medical care. He's working with the Legal Project. I have more information. We're looking for interpreters and volunteer lawyers. The Legal Project has been offering free legal advice to people since 1995 who don't qualify. They're not poor enough to get legal aid, but they get free legal care for domestic violence, rape, campus rape, veterans who need advice, no-fault divorce, wills, and foreclosures. They get representation in all that, and they coordinate the Capital Region Immigration Coalition, CRIC, are 40 agencies working for immigrants. So if you're distressed by reading the news and seeing what's happening and how close our border is, you can get involved, you can volunteer, and we're going to collect donations through the Legal Project to support that work and to bring fresh fruit and vegetables as healthy snacks to the people who are in bring them newspapers and magazines so they're not bored, and we're getting them intake interviews, counseling on what a credible fear interview is, and
Thank you.
yes, thank you very much. Well,
It's kind of hard to interrupt the Statue of Liberty. Okay. All right. So those are, we're going to get to the 106 with Dee Dee Barrett a little bit later. We see Antonia's in the house. Phenomenal Senate candidate, Aaron Glatt. Whoa, and we are one vote away from turning over the New York State Senate and getting a progressive view stated there. So Aaron, you are our man. Come here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm Aaron Glatt. I'm running to be your next state senator. You know, I'm not your typical politician. You know, I don't come from a family that has a lot of wealth, and I don't come from a family that has a famous name. My mom was a 15-year-old high school dropout. I was raised in a broken house in a broken home, and I grew up on food stamps and free lunch. But despite that fact, because I lived in New York, I had a chance to attend some of the best schools in the state. And when I graduated, I knew that public service is what I wanted. But I took an untypical path in public service. See, I went and I started working for a very liberal congressman, a guy named Mike McNulty in Washington. And then I went to work for a very conservative Republican, a guy named Tom Livis in the state Senate. And then I also worked for about 3 years as the deputy policy director to Governor Cuomo, which I'm not sure what he is. And in between all that, I found 4 years to serve on active duty in the United States Army, where I was a platoon leader in the 1st Cavalry Division, where I led 40 kids across Eastern Afghanistan to fight the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And so for me, you know, public service, as you can imagine, it's a privilege. It's not a paycheck. And I take these things very, very personally. So when I look at the world, I'm looking at it through the eyes of my 3-year-old daughter and my 1-year-old son. And frankly, Chatham, I think we can do better. I think we can do better for the single mother, Danielle, that I met in Stillwater, who's still working 2 jobs and can't afford her rent. And I think we can do better for the baby boomers that I met in Hudson who don't know if they can retire, or the family I met in Stuyvesant who lost their son to the heroin and the opioid crisis, the family in Hoosick Falls who's been drinking poisoned water, the tens of thousands of New Yorkers whose health care is at risk because of a federal administration that's hell-bent on turning back the clock, the kids in Nassau that I met who are drilling active shooter drills. Now, New Yorkers don't need cynicism. We don't need hatred and anger. New Yorkers need assurances that we can make the rent, a sense of security at school. We need an insistence on the idea that if you work hard and you play by the rules, that you can make a good life for yourself and get ahead. We need health care because health care is a basic human right.
Yeah.
That's what we need. What we need more than ever is we need real leaders in Albany. We need real leaders. That's why we're going to send Dee Dee back to the Assembly. Democrats from the 102nd to the 107th. That's why we're going to flip the Senate. We're going to win this race. That's why we're going to send Antonio to Congress. Flip the House. That's why you're going to change the world. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's so nice when you meet a politician that's the real deal, right? And you're going to have a representative that represents you. So I am particularly privileged, like several of you out here who are represented by the real deal in the Assembly, Dee Dee Barrett, from the 106. Dee Dee has a special place for us in this area. She, in addition to chairing the Library and Technology Committee in the Assembly, and it works for the environment and women's issues, she is just always there for us. Anytime we call her, she does a town hall, she answers questions, she's not hiding. She is our representative in the true sense of the word. Dee Dee, it's our pleasure to represent.
Hello, Columbia County! You are so gorgeous. It's so great to see all of you here. This is an amazing moment in time. We heard earlier from Alan about what a day yesterday was at the federal level. I mean, what country is it that we're living in? But we really, amazing candidates today, hearing from this incredible slate of people. Democrats are stepping up. Aiden and Tistria and Don and Aaron, this is amazing that we would get the kind of quality and the talent to join us here in Columbia County and step up to run, because this is not fun. This is not easy stuff to do. I can tell you, this is not a cakewalk, and this year is not going to be an easy one. The blue wave that people are talking about in the rest of the country is not necessarily happening here. We have a gubernatorial candidate who used to represent this district as a Republican. Mark Molinaro was the assembly member right here in this area, and that's the seat that I took when I flipped that seat from red to blue. And we're going to do that again in all of these other seats, because this is our time, this is our moment. And I need to tell you, because the work that we do in my office, the work that we're doing and we've been doing for the last 6 years since I was elected, needs a partner in Congress. The work that we're doing for women to make choices about their own bodies, how radical is that concept?
Yeah,
We need a partner in Washington. The work that we're doing to combat Lyme and the opioid crisis and the Get Ticked Off campaign that we launched earlier this year, we need a partner in Washington to help us on that. We need a partner in Washington to help us get money for the Harlan Valley Rail Trail, because we need to cross over from the Dutchess County Park, cross Route 22, and we need something like $2 million. So just put that in your wish list there, okay? That will complete the whole Harlan Valley Rail Trail and bring it to Chatham and give us the economic engine that rail trails across the state and across the country have done. We have been working for that, but we need a partner in Washington on that. We need a partner in Washington to fight for the environmental issues, the great work that we were able to do in my office to keep the Hudson River from becoming a fossil fuel highway by getting rid of those anchorages. It's reared its ugly head again, because now we're looking at other issues in the Hudson River. And we need a partner in Washington that's going to help us with that as well.
Yeah.
And we need a partner in Washington who's going to fight for justice along with us, for environmental justice, for social justice, for criminal justice. We need somebody who will be with us, not have to hide behind doors or disappear in forums where I have to call him out because he thinks that gun violence is just something that happens from white boys who are disenfranchised in school districts.
Yeah.
He doesn't acknowledge that gun violence also means that girls and young women and boys are killing themselves from suicide because they're bullied and because they're insecure and they're unhappy and struggling with so many issues. He doesn't understand that gun violence means kids being shot on the way to school, in Poughkeepsie, in Chicago, in places all over this country. So we need an ally to fight with us on fighting gun violence as well. So it's my great pleasure to introduce, I know who you've all been waiting for, but our great candidate for CD19, my friend Antonio Delgado.
All
Thank you. Dee Dee, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It is good to be here. It is good to see all of you here excited and engaged and energized, because this is what we will need. We will need to be energized from now through November, from the local, from the ground, all the way up, making sure that we do the work and do it endlessly and tirelessly. Dee Dee's right, this is hard. This is hard work. My wife will tell you it's hard too. It's hard, but there's something incredibly rewarding about it, because we're fighting for something special. We're fighting for who we are. We're fighting for our values, our principles. We're fighting for the soul of this country. And there's been no more meaningful time, I think, at least in my lifetime, for us to own who we are as citizens, own who we are as human beings, where our dignity is defined by our humanity. Not by our race, not by our class, not by our gender, our religion, our sexual orientation, but by the dignity that lies in our very lives. Make no mistake about it. We are not the country that rips children away from their parents. We are not the country that rips healthcare away from the most vulnerable amongst us for a tax break for a wealthy few. We are not the country that arms teachers to deal with the problem of gun violence in this country. We are not the country that rolls back Roe v. Wade and treats women's rights as if it's a commodity and not a woman's decision to choose her own fate with her own body. And I can tell you I know who we are, because my story wouldn't be possible but for the values of this country. I stand on those values. When a little black boy from a working class family in Schenectady can go from cutting coupons and putting clothes on layaway to Harvard and Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, things my parents couldn't even dream of, that's what's possible when you have real opportunity and you allow folks to have a dream for their future no matter where they start. That is America. America is not tribal. America is aspirational. We are founded on equality, freedom, opportunity, justice, all these things that make us truly special and great. Now, we are in a struggle of a lifetime between the past and the future. Now, the current congressman represents the past. And I don't just mean that in terms of anything beyond his record and how he goes about the business of reflecting who we are and our values. And by that I mean this. When you say you want to hold on to fossil fuels at the expense of dealing with the problem of climate change, that means you're committed to the past. When you say you want to defund Planned Parenthood, or you call Roe v. Wade a black mark on the country, that means you are committed to the past. When you don't provide a vision for infrastructure, broadband access, cell service, and think about how we build a bridge to the future, that means you are a part of the past. And the past right now needs to be kept in the past. We continue to build. That is what America is. The past is a land where democracy, and a global order where democracy does not thrive. The past is where we can have leaders of the free world sit next to a foreign adversary who's elected, who's interfered with our elections, and not denounce that on a public forum, because we are trending in the wrong direction, away from our principles, away from the things that bind us as people. And unless we have leaders with the moral courage to stand up and be loud in the face of this power and speak truth to power, we will continue to recede in the past. And I'll tell you something, I don't want to go backwards. Do you want to go backwards? No. I want to march forwards. And we can do that now by flipping the house and making sure that we actually provide real leadership right here. And that means all of us are engaged. Because I'll make no mistake about it. And I'm going to stop now. I'll make no mistake about it. True representation requires people to be on the ground, doing the work, showing up, listening, engaging, participating to everybody. Whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, it doesn't matter. your constituents, your people of the community, you deserve a true representative who is here to do the work, and not for the work of somebody who doesn't live here or some outside interest like the Mercer family, but people who actually live here and want to build a family for their future. And there's going to be all types of distractions. There's going to be all kinds of distractions, personal attacks, things that feed into all types of negativity. It's an old playbook that reminds me of when I was growing up in the 80s. Here we go again, rolling back to the time when people were doing things that don't reflect who we truly are. And when I see somebody like John Faso and Republicans who want to come at this from a place where it's not about the issues, not about healthcare, not about Lyme disease or opioids and how we deal with that problem, but want to talk about everything under the sun except the issues. The question is why? Where's your plan? Where's your vision? Are you here for the right reason? And the answer is simple. They're not. So let's get them out. I want to thank you guys. That's why I see you. We got a lot of work to do. And I'll be working with you every single day. Knocking on doors, canvassing, doing the work. We've got to do it. We've got to get beyond our political differences and really figure out a way to unify behind our shared values and issues that we all can stand on, from universal health care to infrastructure to broadband to investing in renewable energy to investing in our public schools. These are things that all of us collectively can stand by if we prioritize them and speak with clarity and a conviction of heart and purpose. And that is what I'm here to do with your help. And if we do all these things, you know what we're going to do? Win! Exactly. We will win. That's it. Thank you. I was asking I want to take questions. I'm always happy to take questions, unlike the current congressman. So. Or one-term congressman. Yes.
What do you think is the best way for the federal government to deal with climate change at this point in time?
Well, first of all, it would help if we put people in the EPA that actually would acknowledge that it's a real thing, and that we actually would do everything we can to give the EPA the funding that it needs to properly regulate polluters. Because right now we don't have that, and we're gutting the agency. I think there's also a critical piece here. We are continuing, this goes back to that outdated mentality, one of which John Faso subscribes to as a lobbyist for oil pipelines. We continue to incentivize investment in fossil fuel through subsidies and tax credits at the expense of our future. We should take those subsidies and those tax credits and shift them over into the renewable energy space to incentivize investment in solar and geothermal and wind. And if we do that, we actually can protect our environment and create jobs at the same time. Yes?
How is your campaign going to deal with the race baiting that John Faso's already started? It's disgusting, but how are you going to address it?
Yeah, I'm going to address it by talking about the issues relentlessly, showing up everywhere, being seen, being heard, and leading with my heart. Love. Love is a powerful tool, man. It's a powerful tool. And if we talk about the issues and we do the work, we will win. No doubt about it. Yes?
Have you challenged Faso to a debate yet? And if so, has he said yes?
I've not challenged Faso to a debate. Happy to debate him. For those who don't know, I'm a trained litigator. I've been trained in the art of debate. So I look forward to that. And one thing I've learned about litigation is it's always good when you have a good record, right? Good facts on your side. I got a lot of good facts on my side. A lot of good facts. When he promises Andrea Mitchell on camera and says, I'm not going to take away your health care 3 times, I promise, I promise, I promise. Well, Your Honor, that's Exhibit 1. Okay? When he tells the whole community, I will not defund Planned Parenthood on record, then turns around and votes for a bill that does just that, well, that's Exhibit 2. Okay, we can run through the litany of things here that he's done and stated on record and backtracked. And it's deeper than the issue itself. It's about your word and your integrity and whether or not you can stand up for your own vote. Okay, you made that vote. When are you going to come back to the district and actually answer for it? And take questions about it? That's how you represent your community. Yes.
Yeah, if money in politics is the mother of all evil in politics, and they're probably going to throw about an extra $7 million at you, how are you going to solve the problem, which is the Citizens United and the unlimited dirty
Money in politics is a disgrace. The fact of the matter is we got 80% of the country right now being asked to share just 10% of the wealth. And if you have unlimited ability to influence government by virtue of that fact, that basically means that you got about 10% of the country that's dictating the terms of our government and our democracy, because they're the only ones who have access to our government. So it is imperative in the face of all this inequality that we figure out how to get money out of politics. You can count on me as wanting to overturn Citizens United. That's a fact. You can also, I think it's also important though, that we commit, as I have, to not taking any corporate PAC money. I think if you get candidates in Congress who take that pledge, that means they are not beholden to corporate power. And when they're there, they can actually rely on the people who put them there in the first place. But here's the thing that we cannot underscore enough. The onus is on us in this room. We talk a lot about money in politics, but money is not a vote. I raised a lot of money in the primary, raised more than John Faso. And I'm happy we had to do that, but that's not what won us the primary. What won us the primary was knocking out over 60,000 doors and connecting with voters and being present and engaging and doing the work. And what won us is that there was an uptick from 19,000 turnout in 2016 to 35,000 or 40,000 in 2018. More and more people are coming out. So if you want to make sure that money doesn't influence our politics, well, you be influential and engage in the system, because your vote cannot be bought and paid for when you show up. Yes.
What role should the United States play in bringing peace between Israel and Palestine?
For those who didn't hear, yes, I'm with you. He said, what role should the United States play in bringing peace to Israel and the Palestinians? Right? Well, what we should do is certainly play a role. And it should be a role in conjunction, multilateral role, not a unilateral, ad hoc, off the whim, reckless role. We do need to figure out a way for a two-state solution. It is imperative that we do so. And as it currently stands, Israel can't be deemed a Jewish democracy with the settlements as they are. So we've got to figure out a way to deal with some of the inhumane conditions that are ongoing and the blockades that are happening, that are dealing with the air and the sea, but at the same time recognize that Israel is a dear friend. And we were the first to recognize Israel as a sovereign nation after the war. My wife is African-American and Jewish. She's been to Israel 4 or 5 times now, showing some films that she's worked on. So I have a personal, my children are Jewish, I have a personal connection to this, but also understand that it is imperative that we have to bring peace to this region, and particularly because of how much unrest there is in the region. What Trump is doing on this is very dangerous, very dangerous. He's playing with fire when he need not. We need real, responsible, thoughtful leadership that brings multiple actors to the table. And right now, we've lost some credibility by virtue of our most recent decisions, particularly moving the capital unilaterally. That put us, I think, in a way we could not be perceived as neutral arbiters. That was a problem. Yes?
So, Fassel's already accusing you of not coming from the district. How are we going to address that?
Yes. So yeah, thank you. So you want to just yell that out for me?
He's from Schenectady.
So this is about distractions.
From Massapequa.
He's from Long Island. You're right. He's the one from downstate. Now the thing is this, and I really mean this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I've been running as a Democrat now for over a year and a half, engaging with my fellow Democrats, and what I've learned about us is that while we are very passionate about our issues and our values, we also really internalize critique. We really have a hard time dealing with the other side's critique. Sometimes at our own expense. I don't care about the other side's critique, particularly when that critique has no basis in fact. You see, no basis in fact. I'm from Schenectady, 10 miles north of the district, where my parents raised me from a working class family. They worked for GE, lived a story of upward mobility that was, for a lot of folks right now in this district, has gone by the wayside. That's what people want to know. What life have you led that is familiar to this region? How do you speak to our issues? How can you pull from a place of empathy? Well, I can, because my life comes from this region, and I live the story of upward mobility that should be back in this region. On top of that, just for a little icing on the cake, my wife is from Woodstock. She grew up an hour away from me. We are raising our children by their grandparents, retired, all here still. I got married in the Catskills, at the Catterskill. Got married, I got proposed to my wife at the Ship to Shore in Kingston. Okay, so it gets to a point where you have to ask yourself, when you label that charge, what are you really going for there? You know, it's kind of the same thing with the hip hop, all that. It's all about trying to create some sort of perception, not grounded in reality. And have I mentioned that we haven't yet talked about, or he hasn't yet talked about, healthcare, and infrastructure, and the environment, and schools, and the things that people want to talk about. I had a woman come up to me yesterday at an event. She is not at all a hip-hop listener, okay? She walked up to me and she said, "Why are we talking about your raps? Why? I don't understand why. I want to talk about healthcare. I want to talk about Medicare, Social Security. I don't care about the music." And I said, yes, exactly. So that's what I'm here to do. Whether it's talk about, I'm from Schenectady. I am from this region. Okay, born and raised in Schenectady. I'm proud to call this place my home, and I'm not going anywhere for a very long time.
So I love what you're saying.
Hey.
It makes enormous sense. Clearly you're in earnest, deep earnest in your convictions. How do you, my impression of one of the major issues that we face as a country today is the difficulty of trying to achieve your goals given the bureaucracy and politics at the federal level. Have you thought about, and I suspect you have, and can you speak to, how you might achieve some of your goals given the difficulty and the large divide at the federal level? How can you achieve some of the things you want to do, and not specifically, but what are some of your thoughts about the strategy, not tactics, about how you would approach that?
Yeah, so the question was about, and it's a good one, it's about the division that's ongoing and the difficulty it is to really achieve anything. There's a lot of gridlock, there's a lot of, well, to put it simply, the system's broken, right? It's not working, it's mucked up, right? With all the money, with all the different special interests, you know, with all the extremism happening, and very little solutions-oriented folk appear to be committed, or at least there in Congress. And for those who are there, they get sort of just, you know, blanketed over by sound bites and the age of, you know, the cable news networks and who can say the one low line the fastest and the quickest and the most witty, and that's the only thing that gets picked up. So it's a challenge. Now here's what I intend to do, and I think this is why this moment is so important. A lot of people have stepped up to engage at the federal level because of how broken the system is. We've reached a tipping point. And I think what you've seen across the country, from end to end, is a sort of groundswell, not just of candidates, but of the people. And this is an important piece, because none of this is possible without people engaging and reclaiming their role as citizens and putting that label of consumer aside for a second, right? And let's stop being just consumers, but actually citizens, and being civically engaged, reading the news, consuming it, digesting it, having a dialogue, pressing, asking the questions, protesting, calling our congressmen, doing the work of engagement. That is how you put pressure on the system. Right now, for a while, there's no system, no pressure being put on the system. And it's imperative that in my role, I'm accessible and I receive that and I engage that. And there's a give and take. Right? And I come back to the community. I don't just go to DC and go, okay, I'm here, put my little button on my lapel and go, I made it. Right? No, I actually come back to the community and engage and figure out how we can build on the ideas that are being, you know, bubbling up here within the community and empower the community, and vice versa, I'm empowered by the community. And then I can come and try to find like-minded individuals who are also doing the same work in their communities and say, how can we build together? Let's put the partisanship aside for a second. You need infrastructure, we need infrastructure. You're dealing with the opioid epidemic, oh, we are too. How can we find solutions here that we might require some give and take, and that's okay, but can we actually achieve an outcome that's going to improve people's lives? And I think the mentality is important, I think the energy is important, and I think the dedication and the commitment is important. And I'm hoping to bring all that to bear with the help of all of you. Yes. This is one more, last one. Yes.
Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump have already said that they plan to use the issue of immigration to build support in November. Meanwhile, some Democrats in the House have already made calls to abolish ICE. I'm wondering, if elected, what your approach to the issue of abolishing ICE or not. Like, would you support those calls? Would you take a more measured approach, like Senator Kirsten Gillibrand said, to quote-unquote reimagine the organization?
Yeah, so good question. And this goes to the question you're asking, which is about how we have the conversation. There's no doubt that what's been happening on our board of child separation and the conduct, the grotesque level of conduct that some of the ICE agents have been exhibiting is un-American. It needs to be taken to task. It needs to be addressed. And when we don't have a president or we don't have leaders who will take it to task, we have a real problem. More important, when we have leaders like John Faso who play into some of the xenophobia by running digital ads about MS-13 and trying to scare people in ways that just fear-mongering. That's all it is fear-mongering. We need to call that for what it is as well. But deeper is the question of how do we have a real conversation here that's grounded in, okay, we have a problem, let's solve it. And simply saying, I want to abolish ICE, right, I think sets the wrong tone for the conversation. For certain folks who might also want to have the conversation but aren't there with you yet, right? They also are concerned about the issue. But the fact of the matter is, the reason why we're having this conversation is because Trump is in office, to be frank with you. And the way he's implementing and using the power is creating this problem. So let's say we abolish ICE. Okay, but the guy who's running the situation right now is still there. And arguably, we might be less safe in terms of removing an entire agency from the spectrum. Yes, to deal with a very bad problem, but at what expense as well? So you have to do these pros and cons. And so you have to start from a place where you can have a genuine conversation about real reform, meaningful change, and not just buzzwords, which I don't want to dismiss the importance of the question and the issue, but the question is, ultimately, how do we get the change that we want? How do we get the change that we want? And I'm here to create and work towards that change. Thank you all.
If you took pictures, could you please send